Okay, so I also had a chat to Ben about transclusions,
Mm-hmm.
and he seemed pretty stoked at the idea, and he hasn't come back with anything contradictory. I posted it on YouTube if you want to take a look later, but
Yeah, cool.
the
Did Ben see
transcludes.
our run through of Xanadu?
I sent him the link. I don't know if he had time to go through it, but he
Mm.
he also could not imagine. He could not think of any faults against the principles of Xanadu. Um, I haven't managed to, or I must have the wrong contact details for the guy who owns uh, the website. So one of the guys gave me a copy of the website, and I was like, "Well, can I publish this? Can I make it public?" And he was like, "Well, this is the guy that wrote the website, so talk to him." And just so far, no reply from that other guy.
Yeah.
But all things considered, there's an archive.org um, that Ted Nelson posted. That's like one of the later versions of his book, and I think his book is probably the thing that's closest to um, was it 87.1 or was it 87.3? 87.1, yeah. This is probably the closest thing that we're going to get to a spec, because
Okay.
this is the book he wrote about how Xanadu's supposed to work back in the day, right?
Right.
And so it's actually very systematic in terms of the detail it goes into. All that detail may not be like, I think we are supplying a superset of that functionality. So, like it's possible to do everything he's talking about, but we're saying that that's not the only way. There are other ways as well.
Right.
So,
Right. So he stated a problem and proposed a solution, but our
yeah,
solution.
yeah, and he's time and time again been proven right about the problem. We all recognize the problem. The solution, he has some elements of it that must be met, but the technical feasibility of implementing just what he suggested is possibly too vast. But
Mm-hmm.
to implement an even greater set of capabilities is simpler, in my opinion. And that's where we kind of reversed into by accident, is that we solved a very natural problem for computing, and then it turns out that you can reverse it into Xanadu, in our opinion. There's a lot of things in here that are going to be UI
Interesting.
focused, but we're not trying to say that we deliver the UI, we deliver the protocol, and the UIs can be
Mm-hmm.
built.
Mm. Yeah. Fight it out amongst yourselves.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Um, yeah, so it's a pretty good read, but I haven't gone through it all yet. I sort of skimmed it, but this is, I think, the closest thing we're going to get to a spec.
There's
Um,
hyperlinks.
yeah, it's pretty
Um,
crazy for like
Actually,
87.
something you put past there. And a paraphrase because I just saw it for a couple seconds. It was like a public ledger with uh, pluralistic, um, effectively commits. Seemed to be, it was quite far way back.
Oh,
It's quite
okay.
early on,
Yeah.
but uh, I think this is useful to have as a lodestone. But lodestone is not the same as having a chart. You need both, right? You need to know which way is north, and you need to know where you're going. I think this is a definite lodestone.
Yeah. Um, if there ever was a time waster, this would probably be it. But if we could get their support or endorsement, that would be worth every minute of that time.
Yeah.
How can we know or probe better without spoiling the opportunity? How can we probe to test our theory?
Well, if you send me over that link, um, I can I can put it against our lore and filter out a whole bunch of stuff.
All right, I have sent it over to you. It's in WhatsApp.
Oh, apologies if I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. Anyway, this sort of seems like if we can prove that we did this, then we'd be good at, like, we'd be practically done because of all the weight that those guys built up over the past 60 years. All that weight would empower us.
I agree.
Anyway, where was I? I was about to go through the framing issue.
Yeah. Sorry for not picking up that text.
That's okay. Sorry for harassing you about being a Monday's meeting when I clearly typed, "Hey, let's do another day." I don't even remember typing that, which is why I think maybe I need to take a break or do something else other than working on this framing problem nonstop.
It was a useful break for me and obviously Chu's birthday to dance outrageously, to classic rock. I mean, we're talking about proper classic rock. On a live band, and dragged our sorry arses back late or early morning, so I was absolutely hanging out.
So the framing protocol. Why I think we have to have framing is because we need to be able to have naps that are published by a third party that represent arbitrary user interfaces as well as logic execution that can run in a trusted environment so that you can share it with others and so that you can, run them on your own system.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the API between those is the trust environment that is important.
Yep. And so
the actual execution of it, you can assume because it's just
yeah.
frame.
So I haven't done any work on, other than research on doing the isolation of the actual code that runs on our servers. But the research I have done is, I think, pretty thorough, and I got a great plan in mind of how to do that isolation. But I'm not terribly concerned about that isolation right now because I'm concerned about the graphical aspect of it, because I want to start writing using that framework because it makes it so much easier to use AI tools if you only do one widget at a time, as opposed to trying to hold together the whole stack. The more, like, you take this interface, for example, it's got so many facets that it becomes very unwieldy to vibe code it when you've got so many things interacting. I need good isolation between components, or else it just doesn't vibe right. And so that's the internal motivation for the frame protocol. The external motivation is that I saw, like, I long for an app store. And so this is an example of a guy who made just a very simple tool that was like a Mac OS launcher. And he made a store, and this is a store of things that him and others have made that do little widget like things, little tools, right? And so you can browse into this thing, and it presents as an npm package, and you can go install, which will install it on your running instance of their framework. This is what we need, like this type of thing, and this comes from the Frame protocol.
So I'm gonna be asking lots of questions. There's a difference between installing an app and then going on and just using that app and building a platform. There's also another difference between allowing apps on a platform to interact, which is essentially what we're trying to do. So you install an app on your phone, that's fine. Click on it, you use it. You've got the platform, which is your phone, but the phone does not allow apps to talk to other apps.
Yes, it does. Apps can communicate with each other in restricted ways.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, but not in a general sense. Apps are meant to be isolated.
Correct.
So the problem, just getting the problem definition. The problem definition is where the apps go to communicate with each other in order to have an immersion property, like a weather app linking to a maps app, that are completely separate apps, gives you weather where I am, for example. Okay.
Whether I am.
Yeah. All right. And this has not been solved by anyone.
It has been solved by a number of. I mean, this guy solved it in one particular way. There's my research showed that a company called Farcaster has the same concept of frames within their. They're like a decentralized Twitter clone or like a blockchain-based Twitter. But with frames, it lets developers write any kind of app and then host it as an iframe on their platform, and it's already got limited access to the identity systems, the payment systems, and all the other features that they expose of their platform, so that the developer doesn't have to go through all that issue. So it is relatively common. Like it's out there. I wouldn't say it's mainstream. Like I don't know any big.
But one or more solutions exist.
Yeah, that's right. And the issue is the tunneling and the permissions management has to be custom to your protocol. Like there's no general form of what it means to grant access across your platform, because that depends on your platform. And so you got to go in there and have there's a lot of awkward things, like you got to load the content, you got to sandbox it correctly, then you got to wait for the page to load before you send it information about what you want it to do. It needs to coordinate with the parent to draw at the right size. If you want to send big binaries around, you got to be careful about that. Like there's a lot of fiddly bits about it, but I do believe it is the best way to achieve what we're talking about. Others have used it to achieve a metaphorically similar system, and I do believe that we must have it, because otherwise there's only really one vendor of a solution. You can't make point solutions. Like Jitters requires this.
Yes, no, I agree with that. So what are the sticking points?
It seems to be just the complexity of those getting that protocol right, and I just, for some reason, in my head, couldn't seem to see past it. I got to the point of having the frame bus defined, the message passing protocol, and all that, and I just got stumped. So I think I just need to stick at it. Really, I mean, it's doable and
is,
feasible, but
is the frame is a bus model the right one?
yeah,
You
because
can
you
have a
need
promises model.
uh bus didn't mean that it was promises or not promises. So right now the exact thing that I'm stuck on is how to handle streaming. So I can do, like, you do an action, it'll be sent up to the parent frame and the response will come down, no problem. The issue is streaming, where I send something, like, say I want to watch for the latest commit, and I need to be notified when the next commit happens because that's going to cause me to re-render. So that requires me to send one action and then stream down a bunch of results that come from it. Another place where we use streaming is when you do the initial load and you want to synchronize the whole repo or the whole branch so that you can have the current commit. That's done using streaming. You ask for the thing and then it streams all the Git objects down to you, because otherwise the round trip thing is just like, it's weeks to do. But if I slam it down in one in a stream, then it's good. But I guess that it doesn't have to be streamed. It was just convenient. But streaming is required to give the real timeness of the system. Plus, I need some sort of streaming to do when you chat with the bot. I personally can't handle it if there's no partial updates coming, because I'm like, is this thing on? Like, is it even working? What's it doing? So that's what streaming's for in that sense. And I'm sure that I will find a way through it. It's just eluded me for now. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, streaming is important for just liveliness of the.
Liveliness, yeah.
So
That's the primary use of it.
you type in, one letter into Google and you get like 8 results.
Yeah.
Type in 2, you get 8 results, but different. But it's always beneath. I don't think what they're. It used to be 2.5 seconds, but it's much lower now. Okay, I'm not going to be able to help you technically because you're deeply seeped in this. So I could just ask high level kind of meta questions in that. How else could it be done?
You mean, how else could the frame system be assembled?
Yes, and what are the trade-offs?
There are no other options other than the iframe route that are anything, like, everything's like comically harder than iframe. And so with the iframe, then there's the protocol. And so the question could be reframed as, could our protocol be better suited to make widgets less of a pain or to not need streaming?
Yes. Streaming, we should interrogate that assumption. The other one would be what would happen if this was all native and was not it wasn't individual apps. What would we lose?
All native. If it's all native, then we are the only publishers of changes to the UI. And if someone wants to use our system, they would end up making the whole system. We want people to use our system for identity, for payments, for knowledge storage, and then we want them to vend apps into a store. And we want that store to be consumable by AI agents so that the humans are getting the best thing the agent could find, but the humans aren't doing the searching themselves primarily.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And so those are all really powerful features, right? Like there's
Yeah.
not. I think. I mean, it's nice to be able to talk to you about it. I mean, you understand. Some of my problems are also like related to shifting to codecs, as opposed to, like, because part of me is like, fuck, I could have probably solved this if I had have just done it the old way by hand, and then, but this new tool does a whole lot of other things really fast too. So it's I guess a frustration that I'm venting. I know I can do this. I just
I hear
haven't
that.
yet.
The thing is,
I just haven't.
right now, more than any time, probably, in the history of mankind, doing anything traditionally is a loser way of doing it.
It's a loser's game. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't then latch on whatever happens 6 months, 12 months from now. Okay, so
I think I just got to keep going at it, buddy. Like, when I explain it to you, when you ask me questions like, what other ways could be done, and I'm like, dude, I did the research. There actually isn't any other way other than an iframe. Like, it's the perfect component. It's also the only component. There are some other options, but they are ludicrously hard and experimental. And I think you'd agree with me that we want like general web reach, like works in the Chrome browser is the minimum. Works in the Chrome browser without special flags by default, I think, is the minimum that we got to just deal with right now, right?
Yeah, you can imagine if Tim Berners-Lee said, yeah, sure, I'm publishing this HTML format, but you've got everything is rendered through servers I own. It's never going to work.
It's nothing, right? It's nothing. And so I guess I just fuck. I guess I just got to suck it up and keep trudging on, because I'm like the tracking guys are being delayed because they don't really need framing, but I need framing to be able to make their app, because the way I made it was like, I had this piece, it worked great. We had a plan for how we were gonna iterate on it, and then we realized that actually we need a change of plan because the shared understanding we had about how their data was managed for the trucks, which is largely on like paper cards and spreadsheets and things like that. But the way that they managed that data was not fully understood by me or by them in terms of how it was best to digitize. Mm-hmm. And so now what I conclude is that the best way forwards is to make an exact replica of the current system, the manual system they have, and get them using that to the point where they ditch the manual system, because they were going to use the manual system as gold reference anyway when the new system arrived.
Yeah,
because
that's the right approach for a number of reasons. Not only what you just said, but also immune response from the company itself.
Yeah,
don't like change.
Well, they don't like errors, and they need something to hang on to that gives them confidence that it's correct. And I think that the error has been that both me and them thought that the quickest way was to build the new system and then compare it against the old card system, But then I realized that that's actually stupid. We should replicate the card system and then build the new system, and then I can digitally compare it thousands of times a minute to guarantee the correctness of the modified system.
Yeah, yeah, but they're still judging it on their experience with the system. They're not going to see. They're not going to go through the code.
Yeah, that's right. And so part of it is like, well, what they want now feels pretty easy to do with the current tools that I have on hand. But if I don't do it using framing, it feels sort of it feels like it lost something.
Yeah, it has lost something because without framing, then you're implying capture of the entire platform, which is not what we
Yeah,
want.
but it also is like then framing allows us to come in with our backstage view. So coming in with like, this view, the power user view, and being able to analyze what the hell is going on inside their installation
Well,
with all these other
here's
tools.
a here's a question for you. How much and excuse my ignorance, how much of the problems are in rendering in the browser? If this was just a command line, would that make it any easier?
If it was just a command line,
Mm-hmm.
it would probably be significantly easier. Um, because the command line affords you the ability to do isolation in many different ways. Like an OS is basically all about isolation between apps, and it provides apps ways to run other apps in completely isolated ways, and it provides very little restriction on how you can interact with them. In a browser, you got issues like cross origin resource security, and like it's a lot of complication in the browser. But it is also not graphical. Um, yeah, not graphical. Big loser. But
And it can also,
fundamentally,
and command line can also always be rendered at the last gasp after it's done its magic.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It. You're right. It would simplify some things, but I just feel very close to this web thing. It's like I think I just need to suck it up and keep on going. I think it is pretty close. I'm just like annoyed and agonizing over the time it's taking and how stupid a thing it feels compared to what it's holding up. And I'm just wondering, is there a better way? Like, am I the best guy to be doing this? Maybe there's someone else.
No, the level of complexity that you're dealing with, I'd say, would take more
The
time.
delays, like it's just that's the problem. Like I got it stuck in my head,
Yeah,
and I just need to get it to the finish line so that we can call on other people to come in on a finished on a demonstrable working thing.
and then people can iterate, but they can't
Mm,
innovate. Innovation always comes from the inventor, um,
mm.
and then they can iterate from that.
Yeah. All right. Well,
But
I guess I'll just have to
at the innovation stage or at the inventor stage, it's like
just
at the
deal
code
with the
base.
the
Code
issue
base.
of delays then, and yeah. Okay.
The only thing you can do at the stage you're at is not do stuff. To say we don't need that. You chuck stuff overboard. Right,
Yep.
we need to get over the Atlantic, so we're going to start
Yeah,
burning
I
the
think I just feel
boards.
bad because I'm like, I know the trucking guys are screaming because they really need this thing and they've been very patient and they don't really need widgets, but I'm like, well, I'm not. What's the point in making it without widgets if we're sort of on the cusp of widgets? I've modified the code base to the point where the old way doesn't work, and I'm sort of, like I'm like, we gotta go this new way.
Well,
Um,
the only other thing, well, not the only thing, but something that just came to mind is comparison with. Um, so you've said that this problem is solvable because it's been solved in the past.
mm,
If there was something to compare this repo against how they solved it,
yeah, I've done all that. I did all
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I
yeah, of
downloaded
course.
the other repos, and then I got Codex to go through and find out how they were doing it, and checked it all off and all that. So
All right, okay,
it's
yeah,
much of a muchness, really. It's just if I can get streaming going, then I think we're in business.
okay.
And maybe I need to just accept a sloppier version of streaming than the one that I know is nice.
Well,
And
the
it may
but
involve ditching support for Opera. Sorry, Safari.
uh, um, well, absolutely. That is first. Well, not first, but chuck stuff over the board, overboard because um, you've got some core things to do. If this was just in one browser, even one version of one browser,
Yeah, so we can't have Safari. We can't have IE. No one even uses IE. Um,
is that still a thing?
yeah, but look, we got Chrome sitting there on, you know, what's that, 20%? Chrome for Android,
Yeah,
45%.
yeah, bollocks to all that. It works on one
It works on
browser,
one, right? I'm
one
like, come on.
version.
Works
This
on one.
specific, this one sub release of this one browser, and it works. Then
Mm.
that's a win. That's a real win.
All right, cool. So, yeah. Yeah. Opera Mini, go to hell.
Yeah. Sorry, Opera.
Safari should have
Love
died a
you,
long
but
time ago.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay. All right, cool.
I've never liked Safari.
2.77% of the global usage is like who are those people? Is it like all these old grandmas or something?
It's all the defaulters. It's the
The defaulters, eh? Like this is their
yeah,
tail. The defaulters.
yeah, yeah.
The long tail defaulters that haven't upgraded and probably just get so
Oh my
much
god,
spam.
18.5, 0.01%. It's like you're gonna bet that's not a high priority list to keep updated.
All right, cool.
Um,
Okay, sweet.
yeah.
I'll
What
do it.
else can you? What else can you chuck overboard?
What else can I chuck overboard? The Xanadu stuff.
The Xanadu stuff, I'm confident will flop out of what you're doing anyway.
Ah, yeah, okay. It's just I so dearly want some friends in this
Oh, we can do
relatively
the
barren fucking.
yeah. I've been reaching out to my network. I've got a couple hi, let's talks, but leave that to me in terms of endorsement because that's essentially what we're after.
Endorsement, yeah, but it's deeper than that. It's vindication for us and for them because they were never appeased.
Yeah, but what you don't want, or I would suggest that would be a confuser at this point, is them coming in with a whole bunch of stuff that.
Yeah, we need a stable base, eh? We need a
Yeah,
base and we need users and we need people on it.
yeah,
Okay, I'll ditch the Xanadu stuff.
yeah. I'll do the networking bitty thing, but at the soft level, not at the code level.
And then what else? Is it still true that the goal is first of all, the goal is serve the trucking guys. Second of all, the goal is get the what are we even calling this? The Dreamcatcher backend or the admin view, the basically the kitchen sink
Um,
version.
yeah, it's Dreamcatcher really.
That's
Um,
Dreamcatcher.
and the first app that I'm going to be writing on this is a CRM for the stuff that we're doing in the background.
Mm.
Um, and obviously that'll be a very kind of friendly app to do in that it's like, oh, don't worry,
Because we
need
can we
that.
can run we can run cursor. We can run cursor, not cursor. Sorry, Codex, because OpenAI gave us the Docker image that Codex runs on because they open sourced Codex CLI.
Well, here's a question for you.
Mm.
Uh, how far away are we in fulfilling the following? One repo um, along the lines of what we had, which is definitions, recording or transcriptions, um, list of people, events, etc. Just one repo, and using this mock with only one app, which is basically the repo structure, and recreating uh, in the prompt saying I want to consider only LKJ and Meow 2, and here's the prompt for it. How much effort would that be?
In one repo, and you only want to consider two folders.
Yeah, cursor like. So it's like, right,
Yeah.
I select
Um.
LKJ and Meow 2, and then I want to ask a question about that.
After we have framing up, that's kind of after we're framing. The next major issue is connecting up the bots to this system. I don't think hooking up the bots is more than a couple of days because I've done it plenty of times. I've been doing research to make sure that I'm steering towards the right thing. I got all these reasons why it should be straightforward. Things haven't been straightforward in a lot of cases, but I feel like I've researched it. If I research it anymore without doing it, it would be wasteful.
Right.
So I feel like I have an implementation plan. I would get that in place, and then I would need to implement transcludes. And again, have a good plan in mind, have done the research on how transcludes should be done. I can make version 1 of the transclude, and making that occur in the chat is trivial because we have concat. So we already know how to take a bunch of filtered files and create a structure for them that we know the bots will understand and use. So that part, getting it into the chat, is done. Making the chats work needs to be done. Call it a couple of days. I feel like I got it, but I might not. And then getting framing done, plus all this UI converted to frames, is maybe a week, just because probably, I suppose, like, it's because shifting them over, each one is like maybe half a day, and there's like, you know 15, 16 items to do there. So half a day each is like 7 days.
So here's Christmas style wish. Number one, I'd love a pony. Number two, if you could have a single app, single iframe, that effectively is what you got there, a repo structure
Mm.
that uh, allows cursor-like, um, pulling in context, and then stored the results of that context, even in the same repo, that would unlock quite a lot on this side. I'd be, punching the ceiling and high-fiving you for that
I
one.
think you're probably 2 to 3 weeks out from that. But that's definitely what I want first.
Yeah, it's like just one app would be awesome.
Yeah, because it's an app with an AI on the end of it, and
Yeah,
that's what makes it epic. It's an AI that is context aware, so that my files are right there with it all the
yeah,
time, and I can
but
fire off loads of different chats.
also has a memory in terms of um, uh, well, the memory stored as files, of course. Then you can go in and say, I was talking about this thing last week and last month. Let's talk about that, and this is what's just happened. Then I'm talking to the bot, just
Mm.
one bot. Doesn't matter, just I don't know 4 mini or
Yeah.
whatever.
All right. Well, that's great to keep aside of that because that's I can get there. I can definitely get us there. And that would be within a matter of weeks. I think is a reasonable time frame to think. It's really just those components that need to come together for that to work. Um,
Because with that one thing, I can get the TFU guys using it,
mm,
or I could get one or two friendlies to use it. I wouldn't get the whole thing to use it.
mm.
One or two friendlies. Certainly, Marlon and I could use it.
Yep. So I mean, at
Um,
that point, to get to that point is from there, anyone's free to make their own naps, more or less. Like so long as we trust them to not, you know, bung the whole system. So there'd be no isolation. But amongst friends, you could start making your own apps and running them on the infrastructure here using
yeah,
using chatting and using bots to help you make the apps. You'd be able to do that. And what I think that'll mean is that you and I will chat, and then I'll figure out the missing tooling that you need to make apps of your own, and we'll sort of nudge it forwards. But that's probably release point then. Like if it can do that, it's like, well, that's the key.
well, yeah. I'm recreating that by the age-old cut and paste method with Cursor.
Mm.
So point Cursor at a repo, then you've got the context, and then you ask things, and then you've got your thread. Fine. Then cut and paste the thread um, into an arbitrary folder, which I'm having to do manually at the moment. And then you index that folder by effectively getting the bot to summarize what's interesting in this, and then using concat to look at the indexes. And then you talk to the bot to say, right, tell me which threads are interesting in this. And then you get a list of threads, and then you come back to it, and with that context, that new context that has been generated by what's interesting from the index, then you can start to get really quite interesting results.
All right.
Um,
So
so I can reproduce this, and it's just
that's cool,
it's a
but
pain in the arse.
that's also
Pain in the arse.
not yet agents, right? So there's like a couple of
No,
steps
that's one
more
agent.
after that.
That's still one agent. Well, it's
It's you. It's just you using a nap. That's not an agent.
no, there's no agent to agent communication. I'm the
Yeah, that's right.
I'm the agent to agent communication
Right,
bot.
right, 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 right. So we need agent to agent communication. And then once we have agent to agent, we need to know how to do ambient attribution. The ambient attribution agent is the one that is the most relevant in the whole system. This is what we build this whole thing for. Is for
Yeah,
that one agent to be able to come into any conversation. That's the whole
yeah.
point.
But the problem with that is that agent requires everything we've just talked about.
Yes, but once it's there, we do kind of need to know loosely how it looks and feels. I feel like we know enough about the system to sort of flop that out. Okay, and then the next part is being able to make agents that can run, putting an agent in control of a repo, giving it some money, and saying, hey, we need this thing.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
becomes the agent that should sit above Codex. It's like that agent works hard to make sure it understands the overall goal. That agent talks to people, processes issues coming in, does its own research, and refines its documentation that describes what its project does in detail.
And also, probably does it multi-level in that, is this worth the tokens
Yeah.
to actually research?
And then what it can do is it can trigger off Codex runs to try and do small pieces of the project at a time, as well as offering rewards to humans, where it has determined that it poked at the problem with Codex, it found the problem too hard and not worth the tokens. It was happy to spend some money on a human to get a human to solve this problem. And if we can get the ambient attribution going and the project manager bot going, I think we're off.
We're off already in terms of demand, because exactly what you've just described, the on the demand side is astonishing. If we can get what you've just described together, then what we've got is everything that in the hopper can be
all in
fulfilled.
one place. Yeah, plus we can start like giving the tool out to other people to use, and we don't have to worry about getting paid because we have the ambient attribution bot making sure that everyone acts appropriately.
Yeah, and then of course we've got the thing, it's like, if you want to improve this, then crack on.
Yeah. Okay. My personal milestone is being able to host the artifact code on Dreamcatcher, so that I would have a repo that represented the artifact code, and I could work on it using these tools and then publish a new release from here.
Is that not exactly what I was just asking for? That loop of one repo, one app, context, and
yeah, pretty much.
Honestly, man, if you could give, you remember how Hal was like a storming victory.
You
Everyone
love
loved
that,
Hal.
eh?
Yeah, and they loved it because you could send a URL of a context to someone else
Yeah.
who could then talk to that context.
Yeah, but it's going to be better here, because here you're going to have like friends lists. So I'll be able to add you, and then we can
your permissions, and
we can share files, which is always a pain. We can share chats. We can chat with each other and agents. We can just do all kinds of things. The framing thing also allows us to have like video calls with each other. The framing thing allows us to share where our mouse pointers are, so that we can have a shared state board in the chat.
Right.
So it's like we're both driving the same app. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing I would say is just recreating HAL in the new structure.
Right, HAL with files.
Would be awesome.
Okay. Yep, that sounds. We sound very close to that, dude. Like, I am sorry that I stumbled on this frame thing. It has only been a week and a half. I think I got to keep in mind. Like, that's really not in traditional terms. That's not a long time, but in the AI world, that's a long time. Especially, and Codex has only been out for like what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, yeah.
Three.
In terms of running a marathon, you're just like, not putting out
Yeah,
your full
but I guess
stride.
that's where my anxiety comes from. Is like if we're able to move like this, so's everyone else. And
I,
what's the danger? The danger is that we don't release, and
no,
like,
no, well, yes, I'd agree with that, but I'd reframe it. The danger is we spend too much time on the pineapple at the end that we really want, or the golden, chalice. Uh,
golden chalice,
what's it? What's that thing that the genies come out of?
the lamp.
Oh yeah, of course. We spend too much time on the lamp and don't realize we've got a few candles on the way, and it's like,
Yeah, because I guess
we've got a genie
the
with one wish. One wish. I was expecting three. It's like,
yeah, one wish is better than no wishes.
right.
So I
Because
guess that like the fear of Ted Nelson was that something inferior would take off, and so
like pictures.
URLs were born, right? And it
Yeah,
happened, and he's
yeah.
like, "Damn it!" But the full fat version was quite hard.
That
I
that
don't.
is the that's the danger, and it's happened many times before. I mentioned VHS2
Yeah,
and with Xanadu as well.
yeah. I can't quite place my finger on it, but it feels like if we don't hurry the fuck up, something's gonna be missed, and I don't know exactly what that looks like, but it's almost like we're no longer. It's not interesting anymore. The world will move on. They'll be like, yeah, we all settled on. We all pay OpenAI for this thing,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
it.
yeah. No, and that is a valid concern. And the only way to deal with that is to get something quick and dirty,
Yeah,
make compromises, even though it might take, you know, 3 times as long to actually get a good thing.
yeah. Um. Okay, so we're pretty convinced that we don't think there's anything we can chuck overboard to get there faster. I mean, I don't like to say it, but I will say it. We could skip the tracking guys stuff, but I
Yeah,
honestly don't feel like that's holding up
that's
anything because
yeah.
we're trying to. So long as we keep trying to deliver for them on our platform, they are not holding us up. It's the features of the platform that's holding it up.
Yeah, I wouldn't chuck those guys overboard because
Even right,
morally it's wrong.
I know, I know. I know. I just needed to say that because I'm
Yeah,
like, well, fuck. Uh, at some point, like, at some point, we're like, well, either we die or
well, let's put it this way: the minute that trucking guys are happy, then we've got like a dozen other guys
we gotta, yeah, we
waiting
gotta
for us.
deliver for them and then immediately bounce off to the next thing because it's like
Yeah,
they will be served with something that is valuable to them, and then we need to immediately get the more general ecosystem going. They're
yeah,
definitely not a problem now. I'd say that they're even helpful because they just want simple things and they force us to deliver simple things or to seek simple things. And so that's actually a benefit, not a loss. It's just I feel so bad that it's taken so long for them.
yeah.
But
Well, that's your problem because you have to deal with how you feel bad or not. I would not feel bad if they don't feel annoyed. Then I wouldn't feel bad.
they are annoyed.
Well,
Anyway,
okay.
be that as it may, we need the framing system. Talking to you gave me renewed sort of conviction that that is the right move to make, and it's very helpful to look at these end goal things. Because I'm like, yeah, that's actually that end goal is within reach, and it's very awesome.
Yeah.
Now the reason I wanted to talk to you about is because I feel like the model of what we want to push for ultimately has become clear with this discussion about stock markets. And I want to talk to you about it because I want to make sure that we're in alignment or agreement, or we find out why we're not,
Hmm.
on that being the path. So, are there any other questions on the technical side of things that you'd like to raise?
No,
No.
all good.
All right, can I start by stating what I think the end goal is, and then we can fill in the blanks and the missing bits and the differences then?
Yeah, go for it.
I think that the future is going to be agents running companies. What we thought was a company is going to be a very lightweight structure, and there's going to be an AI that's published by a reputable authority or possibly a regulator that assumes liability for the behaviors of the company, um, and also controls what the company can say and do to maintain compliance. But other than that, is free for you to do anything you like except anything stupid with money. Like, it won't let you make mechanically, monetarily dumb moves.
Yes.
All right. So that's just like, that's where the future goes in our opinion. Then the approach to get there, I think there's a couple of points I want to go over that make that very easy to start and very low friction to start. But the main thing I want to focus on is where it ends. And where it ends is a regulatory body or a large group or a company that looks from afar like a stock exchange, that is the place where it's really AI company's house. Like, it's the place where the agents live. It's the brick and mortar embodiment of the house that holds the agents. And the stock can be traded publicly by anyone in that situation. Anyone can have the simplest idea and it can be launched as a AI company for nothing, practically. And then people can put money in and do work for and buy products from and trade with and improve all of these individual companies that are servicing the market as well as themselves to fulfill their service of the market, ultimately being the humans. How does that sound?
Yes. I've got a couple points, but I'll
Yeah.
let you continue. Yeah.
And okay, well, why don't we hit those points then before I
Okay.
continue?
The first one is the grounding effect, because we still need to deal with the real world. So,
Yeah.
with
So
your
that
analogy,
that would mean a small group of members of the bar or other reputable office holding that would be the signatories of the house, that would represent, they hold the personal liability for all the actions of all the bots. They are in control of that regulation to make sure the bots are behaving well, but they can sign the checks. Not that there's checks anymore, but they are the real
yeah,
directors of
they're the
each
directors.
company.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
They're the directors
yeah,
that are ultimately on the hook, and that's the earthing,
yeah,
the earthing event.
yeah.
So
They
that
can
we
open
hook
bank
into,
accounts. They can do all those kinds of things.
yeah, they're responsible for, KYC, and
Yeah,
if a bot goes off in one and
yeah.
does something
And
weird,
they
then they must
themselves
step
should
in.
be housed by an AI managed company where it sort of monitors how they're spending their time and their money and the fees that they're charging for what they do, to make sure that it's an altruistic type of a service. It's there for the betterment of AI
Sure.
house.
Sure. I mean, AI, because it's all on chain, AI can always be pointed at the actions of the board versus the declared goal.
Right,
And it's
right,
like these guys are not doing what they said they would do.
right, 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 right.
The second point is stepping into securities. In
Absolutely.
that, how how close to the wind is this
Well,
with securities?
these are absolutely securities, and so ideally you'd want to be registered as a form of a stock exchange, which in a lot of countries is not as hard as one might think, and it requires stringent sticking to the regulation, but it also doesn't require that much infrastructure. Like it's almost like the government said that they're not going to grant any stock exchange a monopoly on stock exchanges. They need to make it approachable, or at least appear approachable by anyone, so that no one accuses the regulators of forcing you to use one stock market or another.
which absolutely makes sense. Absolutely, and also take the spirit of it. The whole point of a stock exchange is timely release of data,
Mm.
so everyone has the same amount of data. There's no insider trading.
Yeah, right. These are
Um,
all basic principles, eh?
right, and these just kind of flop out
Yeah.
of blockchain. It's like so. Um,
So
uh,
probably there's two ways we could go at starting that. Like three ways. Number one is completely YOLO it and throw caution to the wind and do it in crypto only, because then you remove the directorship requirement and you're like, well, it's all crypto and you can't stop the money flow. But and you know, these bots run out of our control, but it is any any human that touches that system is going to get their arm bitten off by the SEC, because you're like, well, you did this or whatever, right? So it's flirting dangerously. But the SEC, I feel, is about to really take a step back, a huge step back. I mean, if
well,
Trump
we
can
got
make a
Trump.
meme
Yeah,
coin, if he can make a meme coin, right?
yeah, yeah,
Which I'm tempted
exactly.
to buy just for the souvenir, because that is hilarious. That is hilarious. And
Yeah.
if I mean, he should make one of him posing as the Pope. That'd sell like hotcakes. But my point is that that's version number one, is the crypto version. Version number two is acquiring a small registered exchange that's already operational, and then sort of reversing into that. Um, I imagine that we could find a defunct exchange that still had its certs or its regulation or something like that. How they might even welcome the change. And the third one is to team up with a governmental body in a country like, you know, somewhere in
Hmm.
Africa, that was
Hmm.
willing to set up the regulation to do this thing from scratch. So those are the three paths that I can see for the top end goal.
Well, there's a lot of appetite, as far as I see, for the number three, which would be awesome because having a nation state.
All right.
See, this is okay.
Can we talk about any of that here, or is that off tape?
Yeah.
Off tape.
I mean, um, there's nothing that I think we can't talk about on tape
Okay.
in terms of
But it
the
basically all comes down to the fact that I think what I was really wanting to get across to you was that if you are having these conversations with these high level players, the thing to point towards is almost warrants us making a document or a statement or a one pager to make sure that you, myself, and Marla are all on the same page, which is to say that it should be AI Company's house. The, if possible, ambient attribution is applied, but I admit that that's a long shot right now. Like, that's hard to imagine, but AI
yeah.
Company's house seems easy to imagine. Ambient attribution seems hard. Um,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
I think that's basically it. Like, if you could just get those two things.
I think some form of AI's company house would be
It's an easy pitch,
easy.
right?
It's easy to, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's easy
And,
to explain.
yeah, and
Um,
you can say that the milestones are, okay, we got to get agents that can be trusted to run the company, and a simple framework for dealing with errors in the AI or hacks or exploits or faults or whatever, which is
yeah.
easy to do because you're like, well, no
And
action,
some
all
form of
action.
auditing, some form of
Yeah,
who's on the hook.
like
Um,
all actions have a 7 day delay. Then that allows you to come in and, you
yeah.
know, fix anything that goes awry. It has some human oversight at the start. Um, Oh, the third thing was going to be that if you do that in an island situation, it would be like if you did it with a free port in mind,
Mm-hmm.
then you would
Mm-hmm.
incentivize a lot of offshore money and a lot of offshore entrepreneurs to set up there because they came for the tax breaks. But if you're going to do that, so number 3 goes with number 4, where number 4 is some kind of transparency so that you can't come there to money launder. Like
Yeah,
you can
sure.
come
But
there
free
with
ports are a
legit money.
thing. Yeah, I mean, free ports are a well-established thing. It's basically you can bring your, you know, £6 million bank off and store it in a free
Yeah,
port and not pay tax for import because it's going to go somewhere else
that's right,
ultimately.
because it hasn't been technically imported, and
Yeah.
that's okay. So really, like the first two things, company's house, and then if possible, ambient attribution, but that's totally fine to delay, because I think ambient attribution will just fall out if you have AI company's house. Uh, but then number 3, like Freeport, plus complete above board transparent operation, because you want to show people how the system works. The Freeport is the incentive for you to basically publish your information or your activities within the Freeport bounds, which attracts more people to be like, hey, AI company's house, how does that work? And then they look at it, and that's part of the trade off. You like make it a Freeport and then get people to be completely open about what they're doing. That's the trade. That's a good trade. Set up company's house there, and then you got all this foreign money coming in that's just offshore doing these ventures that are inside of whatever country um,
Yeah,
you're near
I
to.
agree. And we'll have to see what the appetite is of the decision makers.
Right.
But the value to them is you get this activity which generates a whole bunch of dudes around the Freeport who aren't
Mm,
paying taxes, and but also you
yeah.
get you know very high paying terms locally uh, of middle class dudes who are part of
Yeah.
this.
You get middle and upper class,
Yeah,
um,
and you get expertise and so on.
so on and so forth, right? And then especially if you could register over the internet, it's like, well, now you've got like
Right.
the internet is
Well,
registering its companies with you.
Estonia is effectively trying to do something similar, but without the Freeport part. Remember with their um, e-residency
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
but no one, I've never heard anyone trying to make an AI version where you're like, the company is run by an AI that we provide. Within that
Yeah,
framework, you can do anything you like.
yeah. I think it's so long as it's auditable,
Yep,
and so long as it has a grounding effect in that
yep.
there's someone on the hook
Someone
for
on the hook.
this.
Yeah, yeah. So
Even
really,
even
what?
even if it's like two or three directors that cover the entire Freeport,
Totally.
someone's got to
Yeah,
be on the hook.
totally. That is totally how it should be. And
Yeah,
then the demonstration point to prove that that's possible, or the release point, is once we can, or anyone can publish an agent that can be trusted to run a company in this way, then you're off. You're like, that's the technological breakthrough that we're waiting for. Once you got that, it's good to go.
yeah, and I'm going to double down on Africa for this because there's a few things. Sorry, there's a few things that these guys really care about. They want to grow talent. They want to grow a non-colonial, non-exploitation model. So they want to like be there at the heart of it. They want to become a Frankfurt, let's say, in what we're talking about here,
Well, I
or
mean, this is probably the best bet you got. If you want to
yeah,
start giving legal power to AI agents, legal ability to enter into contracts, to hold bank accounts, to acquire
Right.
assets like land, machinery to produce things, then that's your in, because no one else has got the balls to do that except for
Yeah.
these kinds of countries, and you'll leapfrog everyone if you
Well,
do that one thing.
there's an interesting set of resources. From what I see, I'm not entirely sure that they're making the full use of them. The first one is they've got a huge population of very young, smart guys. Always useful. Second one is they've got legislative power. They can make laws,
Mm.
and they're already recognized. It's not just Tanzania. It's also Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya. Kenya's a
Mm.
bit more sticky because they're more established. Let's say.
It's the thing, right? The more established you are, the more resistance to change. And
Yeah.
so a lot of these nations suffer from corruption, and that's why I think one of the bargaining chips you want to go for is that everything's open, because we don't want to find ourselves in a position where we're vending a system where we're being asked to bend it in some weird way. But if
Yeah.
part of the Freeport proposition was everyone's data is transparent, then you sort of keep the corruption out of it. You can't be corrupt inside the Freeport because of that requirement,
Yeah.
and then that
And
sort of
also
makes everyone
because
safe.
inside the Freeport, there's not much corruption. Usually seems to be comes a problem when there are hard legislative requirements. When the legislative requirements are reduced to, hey, we've got a Freeport, very low, but auditable.
Oh,
Then
that's a good point. Yeah, good point.
there's I mean, what you buying for passing a few
Right, so I
thousand
guess what I'm
bucks,
asking for you to try and meld together is the fact that a public company is good because it is public. But as we know, public companies are the most secretive of all companies because they try to maybe they try to walk so close to the line of lying and also withholding information to the maximum permissible extent.
Oh, they're walking the tightrope, isn't it? I remember
Yeah,
spending 3 days on a press release.
I know,
So,
which is stupid, right? Whereas if it's like
yeah.
real-time public, the real-time public companies, and there's no getting around it because it's an AI that does your press releasing, those types of systems,
And it can be queried as well. So it's
chatted
not just
to, queried,
it's
yeah,
just not just not PDF. It's like
no,
yeah, exactly.
that's right. That's right. But the publicity, the public part is important because it's the defense against corruption. It's also the most tradable open. It's the closest thing to perfect market that you're going to get.
Well, I think we've got well at the moment in the hopper we've got our guy, because I had a conversation tail end of last week with a guy representing Tanzania who was smart enough to actually get this.
All right.
And
Do you think you could prepare like a one-page auto-generated document that laid out these points so that we could all reach agreement and be like, this is what we want to have
Yeah.
happen and this is why? Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. Now, the entry point coming from the other end, the very basics, it seems like, first of all, if you were to go on an acquisition spree, let's call it, the best sort of move that I can imagine that you could get lots of people involved in a decentralized way where they're not directly coordinated, they're all pushing for the same goal, is to do acquisitions for the purposes of transforming them into these public AI companies. And so,
Hold on a second, pause on that one. For the purpose of easy access to investment, or
not necessarily. It's just to say that if we believe that an AI public company is the absolute minimum in terms of wastage, it's like the most efficient actor or entity that you could have to provide a given good or service, or to coordinate a given good or service, And if we're talking about acquiring irreplaceable companies like, waste management, sewage, um, washing, those things are things you can't do without. And we're saying that we want to transform them into AI run companies, then isn't the simplest move to convert them into these AI run companies on some kind of a stock market?
Why could you not do that without the stock market?
You could, but what I'm trying to get at is that the first move you would make is you would make an agent that could act as an advisor, so it could parse all the information in the company, turn it into a standard form, and then give you advice on the company, which could be to buy it. Like, you could keep that agent separate from the company itself, and then it figures out a value, and you're like, yep, grab that. Then number two is putting the AI in charge. Now, you could do that inside a private company, no problem. But the issue is you'd be doing it one company at a time, and the coordination between the companies would sort of be restricted to, you'd have to kind of know each other to hook that up. So you could make an information exchange before you made a stock exchange. So you could take one private company, AI it using this framework, take a second one using the same framework, and then plug them together so that now they talk. And you can publish whatever you want. Like, you can make them act as though they were public companies, but you're just not legislatively required to do so, and your publications don't allow you to trade stock, for example. But you could do everything but. So you could totally prove the point, and you could get them coordinating with each other. That's probably step 2. So step 1 is advice. Step 2 is activity or control or agency. And then step 3 is, you're like, well, look, if we got these things and they're doing well, then if you made a single place where they all lived.
Yeah, precisely. Because
and
the whole
then
point of
open
being a
up the stock.
PLC is easy access to capital.
And limited liability.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I want to do this. I'm going to issue a whole bunch of shares and see what the world thinks about this.
Yeah, and respectability as well, because,
well, that comes from phase 1, phase 2. Because respectability means you're not, snake oil. And it's like, well, if you're not snake oil, I want to be able to audit you. There it all is. And it's like, go back to step 1, how efficient you are in doing this. If you are having to do this individually, manually, it would be a pain in the arse. But also adds in doubt, because, interestingly, step 1, if you had people in it, kind of denies the audit bit, because people can always falsify.
People screw the audit,
You guys can't, because you've got all the threads there. So that 3-step, I think, is quite interesting. I think you're right on that one.
Yeah. So I reckon we could make quite a bit of news if we made a private company, made ourselves liable for it, and then ran it entirely using an agent. And we're like, this thing's in charge, and here we go now. And
we'll bear the liability. We'll insure against that liability. We'll get the licenses, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And the jurisdiction may be more friendly or not as friendly.
Oh, hey, maybe that's that whole gateway company we did a lot of thinking on.
It sounds very similar, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you're like, here's a private company, everything's published, but it's still private. And then if you want to run a project in it, you can, but you must do so using one of our project management agents. And, off you go. We will be your liability. We will take your mail, and here's a bank account, and we can open up all these different banking relationships for you. You can even be unknown. Like, you can be anonymous, and we'll just do whatever you say, plus the AI, plus the Dreamcatcher knowledge web says.
Yeah, but all the these companies like Glass that I showed you earlier on, their real burden is on the admin, which is very AIable.
Mm.
Um, but the KYC rules vary country by country.
Like we'd only need to fit. Like, there's probably a really good business model to set up a KYC service that is AI powered, but is local to that particular jurisdiction. Like,
Yeah.
you set one up
Well,
for
that's
Australia, for New Zealand, for Hong Kong, and
yeah,
then
that's an
people
app,
can,
isn't it? Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
there's
yeah, that's right. It's an app, and then you can bolt that service on to whatever you're trying to do, be it companies, be it a crypto exchange, be it a bank, and you're like, this service runs in this way, and you can buy certain amounts of liability insurance from them that they did their job right.
yeah, yeah,
Because
and
like when I hear about Binance, like they got a lot of people in there, and those people cost salaries, and all those salaries have to be paid for. So,
yeah,
they
and
got,
they're a pain in the arse because they always want Christmas parties and
yeah, and
fucking,
so first of all, they're not doing the
cookies.
compliance right. They're making
Yeah.
mistakes. They're also very bribable, because if I was going to money launder, I'd probably go and bribe some of the members of the crypto exchange to just look the other way as I do some dodgy stuff, or tell me when the crackdowns are coming.
That's an important point. Being algorithmic,
Yeah,
and the people on the hook are looking out for the algorithm, not the specifics.
that's right. And so, if you could even make a crypto exchange, you could get a lot of business because your fees would be trivially cheap. Your KYC would be as transparent as it was allowed to be. It would be fast. It would be rapid. You would have like AI bots that could advise you on what to do, and you could know that they were trustworthy because they were, certed to do so. So it'd be
And
like a much
and you
better
could
experience.
you could translate it to different jurisdictions just by filtering.
Yeah, yeah. And so all the overheads of the staff of Binance plus their computing infrastructure all just reduces. So you're winning on fees, you're winning on performance, you're winning on compliance. All those areas, right?
And also it's probably going to be a superior service because you can
Yeah,
always roll back and replay if
yeah,
if there are a lot of changes in the country and that lot of retrospective is like, oh, it's all here.
yeah.
We've
So the
done
admin,
exactly what we
yeah,
said.
I know the admin cost is very low, but then also people can make naps to customize the exchange. So it really treats the exchange like a white labeled box that you just interact with, just a service, and you can wrap it and consume it and do whatever you like with it. And you don't, so long as you stick to the rules, you don't really have to fuss yourself too much about it.
I know of a few banks that charge good coin for basically doing this with meat brains.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah.
so
Right. So those are really, I think, the industries we want to be in, is this ability to make regulatory white label services that are just, they enable all these other apps to just plug in and go. But we are able to, with a small number of humans in the loop, operate the service very effectively to handle these things that are common to all kinds of ventures.
right, and the whole point of it is the whole point of a stock exchange is to allow anyone to turn up, buy shares, and
Yep.
therefore fund a company.
Yeah, but you got to
Um,
KYC the purchases,
yep.
because you need to know that the
But
money came clean. The money
but
was clean when it came in.
but also you need to have the company being absolutely honest about what its current state is,
Yeah,
and if it makes any, future projections, you want to be able to query that so you can make your own view of that.
right.
So in terms of the whole philosophy around stock exchanges, there only seems to be improved by AI.
Mm. Yeah, but no one's made an AI stock exchange yet, and it's also not going to be like just the stock exchange like it is right now, but just AI'd. Like, it's going to be this AI regulator that
Right.
the
Right.
the regulatory agent is your company. It is your listing. It's not. You don't get to. Like this is
Right.
the thing that makes me the most mad, right? About the tax department. Like you shouldn't be able to break the tax rules. They made the money. They invented the money. They minted it. Like how can you not know what it was doing? Why is it possible to do anything wrong? That's the thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I just have to look at the tax returns in Turkey, for example, is dire. Um, Mostly down to foldable currency. But if you put everything online, all that goes away.
Yeah. All
Um,
right. Well, that was all I was really wanting to check in with you about on that topic.
we're in agreement with that. I'll get a page together with the key points based on this conversation.
Cool. And then
Um,
I'll work to make this agentic system so that we can demonstrate the project management app, which will become the company running app.
yeah, or I wouldn't even bother prompting anything. Just at this level, one app which is cursor-like
Yeah.
that remembers threads.
Yep.
You get that? Then I can make, well, I can save a hell of a lot of hours per day
Mm.
just on that. Because as soon as you've got the thread memory stored, then because you've got the context, you can pull over, you can index it, you can search it, because you're just pulling over everything that's called index. When was I talking about this? That minimum solution,
Oh
just
yeah. It's actually a lot. It does a lot with
is
a very minimal thing.
yeah. If I had that, I'd be cooking on gas. Really
All
would
right.
be.
Cool.
Yeah,
All right. Sweet. I'll stop recording, huh?
yeah. Go for it.